I'm gonna keep on this, and I'm not gonna give much pretext, just to keep the train of thought going. But this is part of like a series of similar similar ideas, in a current, with where I have the same outfit on, just like a current of thinking along a certain lines. And so what I wanted to say is that some people, you might appreciate a video like this, or even like what I'm titling this channel as Pet Theories. Is like, well, what authority are you speaking with? What are you referencing when you're speaking? And by and large, I'm referencing, when the some of the things that I'm speaking about. It's either authors that I've watched many multiple videos on, or read titles multiple times with those titles. So I'm more so referencing as the idea transpires. But I'm not invoking or implying implicit authority, or even research, other than just being a lifelong learner would be the research, and that's actually a form of research. Reading, if I did like a panoramic view of like the books that I more so do things like inspiration. And I had a family member that was an academic, and they would actually approach books very methodically, with the intention of of drawing sources and citing them clearly, and also sometimes doing things that had consequence, like even to some degree politically, such as with like research around certain diseases, and addressing atrocities leveled against an entire like group, as like an organized, or like an intentional organized atrocity. They've worked in both those degrees, those venues, with citing sources, to make strong positions that would have consequence. Also having consequence in academic settings, as a teacher and a student, that person I'm referencing. So I grew up around that. But I also came across the author, Nicholas Nassim Taleb, that talks about that. One is that when we say things, we should be interested in what we're saying, or inspired by what we're saying. Otherwise, it's not valuable, even as insightful, or as informational as it might be. If it's not compelling to us, then it wouldn't be worth entering. And also that we should read things because we're interested and have a passion for it in the first place. And then if one were to draw a source from that point in good faith, it would be more compelling from that standpoint than to approach a source with the intention of deriving a citation or a source. It changes a little bit of the engagement. But I just want to say that it's still our prerogative to reason. And if you've ever seen someone that can really reason, like I had a friend when I was growing up. Well, I had two friends, and they were similar. One would just, he would reason things, but he could do it humorously. So he could point out a lot of absurdities and contradictions. Even the most straightforward, serious, respectable things are potent and laden with contradictions. A lot of it might come out in puns. Like it's very almost simple to conceive puns in the English language. I think because one is the language, but also we just have so many assumptions. And we also take a lot of assumptions and license in speech, and it lends itself to puns on a simple level. Most people can appreciate or conceive a pun. But then I had a friend who could do like physical humor, and like he could do like imitations in like his voice, and he could really be quite humorous like that. But then I had another friend who would do the same thing, but he would just, when he was equally as entertaining, and maybe even a little bit more charismatic and entertaining. But when he would meet, he would kind of like go slow, like some people, like they meet you and they're just like way up here. But my friend would meet somebody down here, and he would actually observe a room and people, and then he would just go up like that and like that, because he actually had an idea in his pocket of what everyone can and can't do, can and can't say, may or may not be about, before he would go to being himself. So he would just kind of start cool, but then he'd get really hot like that. But all I meant to say is that you can extrapolate a lot, even in, like in a social context. Some like in the Wu Tang manual, they say like you do the math when you're entering a field or even a room. You do the math first, and but it's our prerogative to reason. And some of the most keen insight is just from people sitting back and thinking about like about just about like how absurd things are. I had another person like that from a similar part in Africa. He was a friend of my father, and he said, okay, so if I pull out a $5 bill and a $20 bill, why is a $20 bill worth more than the $5 bill when it's just the same piece of paper? Is it in turn the paper is the same? A $1, a $5, and $20 bill is just the same paper, but one, because the letters are different, now it's worth more. He just pointed that out as a contradiction. But I don't mean to be coming forth with more than just exercising the prerogative to think and doing so on the spot, just to be a little bit more congruent and maybe authentic by doing it on the spot. But what I was thinking is that but money it can be appreciated in terms of currency. And Tashriq Bey has said that an example of the pull of the planetary bodies on human living. He goes on to say the affairs, no less than dealings around finance. But all the things, like I recently I had a deal lined up to do something, to undergo a training later this week. And actually the person who was facilitating the training gave me a quick message that they lost someone recently, so the training is a no-go. And now you could say that might seem random, but it's actually still it's a part of, I would say that whatever had a person pass away right now, as I was undergoing something that I needed critically for training, it represents the motion of the planets on a deeper level. Because one is that sometimes the timing of when people pass away and don't has to do with the seasons. Like, say I don't know what, I don't want to guess what the person had passed away from, but say it had been a certain, like say it had been a flu, like say they had passed away in the winter time. Now it's known that the flu is more prevalent at certain times of the year. That time of the year and the weather conditions are a function of how the earth, the angle of the earth, the axis of the earth, and how the sun and how it meets the equator. At that time of year, the nature of the seasons at a particular time of year has to do, it's a technical dynamic that has to do with the angle of the earth and the sun, and how the sun proliferates upon the earth. It affects the temperature and therefore the weather cycles. So you could say that were someone to pass away during flu season as a function of the reaction of maybe viruses to those weather conditions, and the goings on of human beings based on those weather conditions, it can be extrapolated that the flu is a function of the planetary motions, including the Earth, which is part of the planet, a planet. And then that has a dealing on the interactions of human beings, no less than creating and being viable for income. Because if someone lost a family member and they can't train a person, that's affecting a person. I don't mean to make light of that, but that's affecting a person's ability to make income, and it's a function of a deeper motion of what has been a person's life to this point. But that also had to do with the planets, because where the planet was when that person passed away, but also even you could go deeper, is where the planet was when that person was conceived and born. According to Arthur Avalon, to Tashriq Bey, the planets would have an influence on that person too, even down to when they were being formed in the fetus. Because as the moon can be appreciated as affecting the tides, it would be affecting all fluids, not just the ocean. Because the fluids in our body are not different than the fluids in the ocean, in the sense that they're still fluids. And it's also been said that, like, the pH level and the balance, the human body, it's almost like how humans came to be took the ocean out with them. So as we became land walking, land migrating, we actually kept the ocean within us, and a lot of the inside of the body is an exact replica of the ocean. So it could be said that we're just we took the ocean, we never left the ocean, we took the ocean with us onto the land. But the moon would be having an effect on all the fluids, including the fluids of the womb of the womb of a woman. And it would also have an effect, like, on the salts in the womb, according to Tashriq Bey, and the pull of the moon, according to Tashriq Bey, is having an influence on the fetus. That's just one small example of how the planets would affect the formation of a human being, but also that human being's entire life, no less than their fortune and misfortune, and how that fortune and misfortune affects other people's fortune and misfortune. And that's some of the connectivity, and that can be appreciated in terms of induction, electricity. Attraction and repulsion is probably the most basic part of that. And attraction and repulsion is even part of, like, business, advertising, stuff like that. You have attraction and repulsion in almost anything, even chemistry. So that's an example of how money can be appreciated in electrical terms, but I'm